So, the dream team for this third week of November internationals. I should say before I forget, I haven't looked at any players from England or Japan, or Wales or Tonga, because I haven't seen those games this week. So, it is the four games I covered in the previews and reviews: Ireland and New Zealand, Australia, Italy, France and Argentina, and South Africa, Scotland. So, just those eight teams from those four games. Next week it'll be different teams, just depending on the four games I cover. But yeah, to be fair, I probably could have just picked the entire Irish team for this one and be done with it. But I've tried to mix it up with some star players from the other games because yeah, it's got to be a bit of a mixed bag. So please don't take it if I don't pick any of the Irish guys that performed well, because man, so many of them did well. That I'm trying to say they had a bad game. I'm just trying to keep things a bit mixed up, and there were guys in other games who also played well too. So yeah, I'll do some honourable mentions towards the end. As always, it's more like a fantasy team than an actual strict 1 to 15. It just makes it a bit more fun for a guy who plays a fair bit of fantasy rugby. So yeah, it's a lot of based on stats and guys who I thought played pretty well. We'll start off with the props. No surprise here. Tyke Furlong. The guy, I mean, he's just a monster. Carl Tuinukuafe, who was up against them this week, has been one of the kind of... I think he's up for breakout performance of the year, breakout player, because he's just kind of come from nowhere. It wasn't that long ago he was a bouncer working at a bar or a club or something. And yeah, he's been making other more established props look silly, but not this one. He was under the pump from Tyke Furlong, and when he went off, he looked absolutely shattered. So, a long night for him. Tyke put in a massive shift. 12 runs, 21 metres, which for a prop is a pretty good return. 2 defenders beaten, 6 passes, 5 from 5 tackles, as I said, all over it in the scrum. So, world's best tight head? Probably. If not him, then who? Next, again, no surprise here. Cian Healy. Close last week as well, to be fair, but I've put him in this week. 7 runs for 14 metres, so again... like really solid numbers for props. Like so many times when I do this with the props, it's like 1 run equals 1 meter. That's just how it goes. But yeah, these guys were just getting paid from the runs they were making. They were getting on the front foot, which kind of speaks to their performances in the game. 2 defenders beaten, 2 passes, made 12 out of 13 tackles, which for a prop is very, very good numbers. Yeah, he even kicked 1 ball out. I think it was him on half-time who took the ball from the base of the ruck and popped it out, which we don't often get to see a prop do, so that was pretty cool. And yeah, again, in that scrum, one of the other best tight heads in the world here against them in Owen Franks, and he kind of held his own. So kudos to him, man. That scrum more than held his own because the scrum was going forward. Probably more on Tuinukuafe's side, but still... yeah, you need both sides to be doing their job, and both sides were, so props to the props here. Next, into hooker. I didn't have any French guys last week, and that was a bit of a shame. So I've got one here. Guillaume Guirado from France, the captain, the hooker. 9 runs for 22 metres, again, a pretty solid return. 1 defender beaten, 3 clean breaks, which for a hooker is very good numbers. 7 passes, including 2 offloads. Line-out was operating at 90% for the French, so very solid in that department. 10 from 11 tackles. Everything just did really well. He scored a try, which was a real poacher's effort. Like Argentina kind of fumbled some ball from their own line-out about 5 meters out, and he was on it like a flash. Really instinctive, just no hesitation. Before anyone else could really blink, he was already over the line and scoring. So, yeah, and the scrum was on top. The Argentinian scrum's not been good, but, he was part of a front row that was making the Argentinians pay there. Next, In the second row, I have gone from the Springboks. I've gone with Archies Neyman. 4 runs for 10 meters is again per run decent numbers for a guy in the second row. Beat 1 defender, 1 clean break, 4 passes and 2 offloads. So if there's one thing about Sneeman which you got to be excited about if you're a Springbok fan, it's just the guy's hands. He has a remarkable control for a guy his size, and he's able to set up opportunities, and he was part of Creel's try early on where it needed quick hands. You're able to take a pass and then move the ball on. And he is absolutely that guy. To go along with his core work of, his line-out jumping, his tackling, all that kind of stuff, which is all very solid. He's a bit of a feisty chap at times as well. So the locking ranks in South Africa are looking pretty deep right now, which again, going into a World Cup next year is a pretty good thing. And he's been a really revelation of a player this year. Played really well alongside Diaka at the Bulls, and he's doing well for the Boks. He had 11 from 12 tackles, so pretty good shift from him all round. Next, from the Wallabies, I have gone with Isaac Rodda, who played against Italy. 14 runs for 49 meters. Now that is a proper return for a lock. 1 defender beaten and only 1 clean break. So he was making those meters apparently over people. If he wasn't beating them, he must have been dragging them along, because those are some massive meters. 5 passes, made 12 from 15 tackles, got a turnover, and a key point for him, which is probably what edges him into this lineup, 4 line-out steals, which is more than anybody else this week. He was ridiculous at busting up that Italian line-out. So 4 line-out steals is massive. Great performance from a really, really young man. So good things to come from him for the Wallabies for the future, because I think he's only 21 or 22. So top stuff. Next, and I have gone with another Wallaby, Michael Hooper. This week it was probably him that outshone Pocock, although Pocock did go off injured at one point. 5 runs for 8 meters is not what we know Pocock can do. Pocock on the brain is not what we can do. No, Hooper can do with the ball, because he's a really dynamic runner. He runs like a center sometimes. He still beat 2 defenders and had 3 passes and an offload, but there's nothing that outstanding there. But what was outstanding, 20 out of 20 tackles. When you're getting into the 20s, you're getting into massive numbers. 5 turnovers, which is just bonkers, honestly. 5 turnovers. I'm not sure if that's the most I've seen this November. I think it probably is by one play. I think there was 4 from a couple of guys last week. Didn't concede any penalties. Put a try-saving tackle in early on. Put a hit on Campagnaro, which caused him to lose the ball. So he was really putting in a shift in a game where the Wallabies needed to bounce back, leading from the front. So got to be pretty happy with his performance there. Next, where's he gone? Here, I have gone with Adi Savea. Now, the All Blacks looked pretty flat in their game against Ireland, and a lot of guys didn't end up looking very good because they were dominated in lots of areas. But there was one guy who was at least trying to match what the Irish were doing, not always able to do it, but at least putting in a proper shift, and that was Adi Savea. 8 runs, 23 meters, 2 defenders beaten, 5 passes, pretty solid return. 14 out of 14 tackles is a big shift from him, and he was one of the guys having to keep Bundy Aki at bay because, it's a big body coming at him. 1 turnover, and as I said, he was just really physical. So you looked at that All Black team, and it was kind of hard to pick guys who should be in this, and he's probably the only one. Next, and he'd probably have to be the captain of this side if I was to give it a captain. Peter O'Mahony from Ireland put in just a massive performance. The stats really don't even do him justice, because some of the things he did were just kind of superhuman. 9 runs, 23 meters, 7 passes, 8 out of 11 tackles, 2 turnovers, contesting the ball in the line-out was kind of his forte. It has been. Once him and Tona went off, the line-out probably wasn't quite as slick, so that they missed him. He looked injured at one point and just kept going. The guy is just like eats nails for breakfast kind of tough. And yeah, that ball that he collected, I think it was Barrett's little chip kick through, and Ben Smith was try for all money, but somehow O'Mahony managed to collect it in, and denied the All Blacks. It was just that kind of absolute dedication, superhuman stuff that was all over the Ireland lineup that day, to be fair. So, yep, well-deserved spot for him there. Next, number 9. No, I don't think any of the 9s were kind of super fantastic over these games. I mean, definitely all solid. Like Marmion was fine. Perinara looked better for the All Blacks when he came on. Laidlaw kicked his goals, so did Saram for the French. But I have gone, and part of it's context with this guy, I've gone with Ambrose Papier from the box. Now, he's a young man. He's only also, I think, 21. And in the context of the pressure that was on him, he's been on the bench for 80 minutes for pretty much every game of the Rugby Championship and not able to even get on for like the last 30 seconds of any game. Which, in terms of your mentality, you've got to be wondering if if the coach really believes you should be on the couch or you should be on the field, because you got to wonder if he trusts you to actually get a job done. He was given a start here, and he didn't go into his shell. He actually played really solid. 3 runs, 25 metres, 2 defenders beaten, 1 clean break, which was part of, I think, the Pollard set-up try for Creel. He came a few phase later. He had a try assist, which was for Creel, because he got to the ruck quickly and just fed it to Creel, who went in and scored. Made 5 from 6 tackles, including 1 on Maitland. Maitland was run full tilt, and Papier caught him. Someone wrote in the comments that Rassi said he's pretty much as quick as the wingers, like Dianti and Nkosi, and he looked at it that moment. Maitland was going, and he caught him. Scotland still ended up scoring a try because he managed to get the pass away, but commitment, and he wasn't being walked over. Managed to get a turnover as well, so for the pressure that was on the young man, I thought he did a very admirable job. Next, fly half, and this is a contentious one. I've gone with Andre Pollard. He was man of the match in that game. I know Sexton had the ball on a string in that game, but I've gone with Pollard. 12 runs, 41 metres, so pretty good return. Beat 5 defenders, 2 clean breaks, 7 passes including 2 offloads. Made 5 out of 8 tackles, which is fine without being fantastic. Probably should be a bit better. His kicking was good, except for a couple of missed kicks at the end. Scored one of the key tries, which ended up being the difference at the end of the game. So, yeah, Andre Pollard, man of the match from that game. He's looking good for the box. So I'm happy to see how he goes. He really seems to be the first and only choice in that number 10 jersey, which just 6 months ago was kind of really up in the air as to who it should be. But he's made it his own. Not to take anything away from Sexton. Midfield, Gelficou from France. If you've seen that game, you'll know he set up an absolutely amazing little try. 12 runs for 67 metres, good run. Beat 6 defenders, which is pretty high this week. 1 clean break, 7 passes, a try assist. I don't know how many defenders that he beat were in that one little phase where he went in for a try. He just jinked and jived and managed to just scythe through half that Argentinian team. Then get a 20-metre pass away to Thomas, who went in and scored the try. So also made 5 from 6 tackles. One of the difference makers in that game. Added a bit of excitement, and maybe the try of the match would probably have to be, although Moyano's one was pretty good as well. Next, I'm going with Hugh Jones from Scotland. 8 runs for 77 metres. Again, good return. 4 defenders beaten, 2 clean breaks, 2 passes. He had a try assist, which was part of setting up the, I think it was the first try. Or was it the second try? Can't remember. 7 out of 9 tackles. It was his little out the back pass. That's what it was. It was amazing skill from Hugh Jones there. He had one massive counter attack where Pollard's kick hit the post and he just gathered it ran straight through the South Africans, ran up half the field. I think it was Dale Ender that caught him. Big effort from him. And like he's been questioned defensively, but 7 out of 9 tackles. Pretty solid return there, I guess. Into the outside backs. Cannot go with anyone else but Jacob Stockdale first. He was probably, apart from Mahoney, my first name on the sheet. Him and Furlong. Those were the first 3 names I had on the sheet. He had a try, which was a bit of magic. The little chip, the regather, the strength to kind of be able to go through at the end and just reach out and put the ball down was, it was a proper bit of magic. 9 runs, 76 metres, 5 defenders beaten, 3 clean breaks. He was giving the All Blacks a pretty long night. 3 from 4 tackles. Man, there's some proper thunder out there. Solid effort from the young man, and those stats look really pretty. Next, going with Stuart Hogg from Scotland. 8 runs for 43 metres is not as good as like Jones and Stockdale, but it's still solid. 2 defenders beaten, 1 clean break. 6 passes, 1 offload, 3 out of 4 tackles, and his kicking was just punishing South Africa. When South Africa were putting any of their aimless kicks through, he was making them pay. And when he went off for Scotland, it was probably one of the best moments for South Africa going forward, because he was one of the key players in that Scottish team. The forwards weren't kind of up to that same level we've known from the Scottish forwards of late, but the backs were still doing some damage. So it was a big loss when he went off. And last, I haven't got any Argentinians this week, but I have gone with one of the Italians. I've gone with Matteo Bellini. He scored a try, which was a really quick thinking, a little bit of action from him. I forget whether it was a drop ball or an intercept, but he got the ball and he was away. Right on the left wing. The guy has got some massive gas. Had 8 runs for 87 metres, beat 2 defenders, 2 clean breaks, 2 passes, and for an outside back, he made 8 out of 9 tackles. So that is a very, very solid return. Often with the outside backs, we see them getting skinned or they're having to mark 2 guys, so often their tackle stats suffer a wee bit. Not in this case. So that is the 15. Like I said, it probably could have been the whole Irish 15, but I've tried to mix it up and get some of the key players from each of those games. Only 1 All Black, 1 Italian, a couple of Frenchmen, a couple of Aussies, a few Boks, more Irish than anybody else, but that kind of speaks to their result. A few honourable mentions. I mean, as I said, Carney should probably be on here, but hey, he's honestly the kind of player whose stats don't tell the full story with his performance. Like his stats, you look at them and go, that's fine, but not that special. But he's just like positioning. There's no stat for that. He was just so disruptive. He's the ultimate kind of disruptive and defensive guy that is just so secure at the back. Like there's no wonder Joe Schmidt just loves having him on the team, because he is the safe pair of hands. He's like the padlock on the safe. Is there a padlock on a safe? No, but you know what I mean. Although I should say he was probably lucky not to get a yellow card with that aerial challenge with Ioane, and that's also coming from 2 of the Irish papers that I read as well. So that's not just my Kiwi bias. That seems to be kind of an across the board feeling, but that's not to take away from what was a very, very good performance. Sexton, I mean, defensively solid apart from having the ball on a string. Like I said, he made 11 tackles, which is phenomenal. Sometimes you wish, like, come on, bro, just like take it easy. It's World Cup next year. Don't risk it. But he was fully committed. The work rate of James Ryan, Devon Toner on the line out. The midfield, Aki and Ringrose. Ringrose made 14 tackles, which is phenomenal. Aki was dominant with the ball. Stander had those turnovers. Van der Fleer had heaps of tackles. Cruddy had lots of tackles for the All Blacks, but I think that was a day where the Irish midfield was really on top, so I was never going to put him in. Other teams, Karevi did well for the Wallabies, although he did drop the ball a few times. Still was their main kind of penetration runner. Korobidi got a couple of tries, which was good to see. Adam Ashley Cooper came back and looked solid. Teddy Thomas got a couple of tries for the French, but a lot of those were kind of just like anybody could have scored it. He was just like the man at the right place, so he didn't have to, like, it was Fiku that did the work for his try. For Thomas, was it first or second try? But Thomas was just there running that line at the right place, right time. Ghiraldini for Italy had a ton, like I think 21 tackles for a hooker, which is amazing. If it hadn't been for his line-out getting kind of torn to bits a bit, I might have considered him for the lineup. Khaleesi and Vermeulen both had 3 turnovers each, which is again phenomenal. Khaleesi lucky to get away with a headbutt, which I didn't see live, but it seems like he's avoided any sighting for that, so he's lucky. Franks again for the All Blacks made a ton of tackles. I think he had 20 plus as well. But it was never going to be a night for an All Blacks prop on this board. Bustero had heaps of tackles and turnovers as well. I think he had 2 turnovers, which is pretty good for a big man. And if there was going to be an Argentinian guy in here, Moyano with his run, scything little run through the French defence, kind of beat 3 guys just by running the perfect line. And Matera had a couple of turnovers. I think was it 2 or 3. But yeah, so good performances, really all around the place. But this is my 15 from the games that I've seen. You guys let me know your thoughts on other guys who should be here. There are many. And yeah, it's definitely not the right 15. It's just my 15. But yeah, as always, you guys let me know your thoughts on the team, who should be here. And yeah, I'll talk to you again soon. See you later.